Well, if you don't like reading Canadian magazines, you're about to see some big changes in what shows up in your mailbox. Rogers Media is overhauling its magazine division and shifting to more digital content. Its biggest magazine, Maclean's, will go from being a weekly publication to a monthly publication. 4 titles: Flair, Sportsnet, Money Sense, and Canadian Business. They won't be published as print magazines anymore. They'll only be available online. And Rogers is planning to sell off its business-to-business publications and several French titles, including Chatelaine, Lulu, and L'Actualité. So to talk a little more about this, I want to bring in Mark Satov. He is a strategic advisor with Satov Consultants. Mark, when others hear this, and I'm interested to hear what you think of this, it doesn't necessarily sound like good news.
Well, I don't know if it's bad news per se. I mean, I think they're reacting to the reality. You know, whenever I hear a story about a media company or any company that is moving from a more traditional medium or traditional way of getting in front of their customers to a more digital way, you know, I'm never surprised. I think we all know that that is the direction that the world is heading. The question in every spot is how quick is it getting there? Where will it bottom out? And what is the best move? So when I look at this, I don't think it's a bad news story. I just think they're making bets on how to serve the customer best and how to keep their profits.
Yeah, and talk about those bets, because I mean, I think of a magazine reader as somebody who might want to hold that magazine. They might want something tangible. And Chatelaine, Maclean's, these are big name magazines.
You know, I think when you say that you would want to hold it, I think that's interesting. I liken this situation a little bit to milkmen. I mean, I think having a milkman come and deliver your milk every day is a thing that we would all want, but there's no model for the milkman to do that profitably, so we can't get it and we go to the grocery store. I think that when you look at, you know, Chatelaine or Maclean specifically, you sort of say which publications are going to go digital or go away and which are going to stay. And I think we have to think that things that are more frequent, more news related, are more likely to go digital because people need them frequently and they're going to get it one way or another. And the experience is nice, but nobody can afford to give it to them. If you think about things that are niche or specialized audiences and therefore less frequent, I think the bet that publishers are going to make is that people will still want to read them. They'll read them less frequently, and if they cut the frequency in half, that at least more than half the audience will go, and they'll be able to sell to the advertisers more eyeballs in total.
Okay, then, so let's talk about the business model. If there's not one for the milkman, what's the business model going forward here? Are you charging subscriptions? How are advertisers going to be wanting to take part here?
Well, I think we're still waiting to see what shakes out in terms of where there are going to be paywalls and where there are not, and how much of your revenue is going to be subscription versus advertising based. I think what we've seen so far in digital circulation is that although people are saving money by going from print to digital, that doesn't mean that overall they're happy with it, because they're making less money when they sell digital ads and they're much cheaper. And so I think we're going to wait to see what the model is. I do think that people will want news and other things. I do think that people are going to be creating content. It's just a question of, you know, who's going to be paying for it and who's going to be watching it. You know, I think one of the things to look at is the comparison between magazines and newspapers, and the fact that, you know, magazines is all specialized content. And so magazines can't really do what newspapers are doing, which is going to more centralized content that gets reproduced in many publications. And so you have news publications that are dailies or even weeklies that are really aggregators. They're taking, you know, Associated Press stories or other stories and reprinting them. Whereas in the magazine business, it's really hard to do that, because part of the value proposition is we're giving a magazine to you for what you need. And so it's the model will have to be different.
And that is the argument a lot of people make against a move like this, that they worry about the quality of the content is not going to be the same if the magazine is not able to make the same kind of money. I'm just wondering quickly if you can think of any success stories in the magazine department moving to digital that you would cite, or if there's any advice maybe that you would offer a magazine like Maclean's in this situation.
Well, I don't think that we can necessarily, you know, draw a line between it's going digital and the content is going to be poor. I mean, I think what they're saying is they can't afford to print it and invest in content. And so what they're doing is they're saying, I want to still invest in content. The only way I can do so profitably for right now is to do it digitally. So I don't think you necessarily say that because they're digital, they're going to spend less on content. They're actually saving their money for content by doing it digitally. I think I would rather give advice, if you don't mind, to the people who are staying in traditional or print media, and I would say give the same advice to a retail store that's staying or any other business that is staying traditional. You know, fewer consumers may be going to see you, and they may be doing so less often, but invest and make it count and make it worth the trip and make it worth the read.
Some good advice there. Thanks, Mark.
Pleasure.